And I suppose some would describe him as a slightly eccentric, Dr. Morne Mostert.
Thank you so much, Tace, and may I just at the start object to the use of the word slightly in that introduction. Those who know where they come from also know where they've been. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a tremendous honor for me to address you today on this important day, your graduation. And the reason it's a particular honor for me is because I've spent my life studying what you do. You actually do it, we just study it. And what you do is to be on the field of play every day. Real managers, real leaders, with real challenges, cracking away on a daily basis. That's what I try to study, and that's why I'm particularly honored to be with you today. I'm sure that many of you want to thank many people for your great success today, such as those guys at Wikipedia, the makers of red wine, and whoever the hell invented copy and paste. We know. They know. But we are, of course, we are management and leadership scientists. What does it mean to be a scientist? Well, one way to think about it is that to be a scientist requires discernment, judgment, the ability to think. A default for what is proven, or at least for the method, in search for evidence. And then to have the delicate dance to balance that with some of those elements that make us so uniquely human: imagination, curiosity, creativity. We are, of course, here at a university, one of the greatest universities on the African continent. But what do universities do? Well, one could argue that they exist, well, in the past and in their lowest form, they exist, I think, to be purveyors of knowledge, but in the future they must, of course, be co-facilitators of meaningful insights and workable solutions. And those you've been studying over the last several years. So in my address to you this afternoon, I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is there is not an oversupply in the world of good quality leaders. This is not a problem the world suffers from. And now that you've gone through the rigors of USB Ed, you find yourself in this very select group. But I have bad news also. And the bad news is that there is, in fact, a lamentable oversupply of idiots. They walk among us. Some of you have encountered them. The popular and public mind is overcrowded by idiots, and I don't mind sharing with you that I'm sick of them. They cannot argue, they're not informed, but they're everywhere. And they're influential. And I would like to invite you, dear learned colleagues, to go on a quest with me, what you might call a avoid or conquer the idiots quest. Difficult as that may be. But herein also lies some good news. In my opening comment to you, I observed that those who know where they come from also know where they've been, because that's essentially what they know. We often hear the counter-argument that those who know where they come from are supposed to know where they're going, but the scientific evidence for this is almost non-existent. It would make, for example, the best futurists in the world, in fact, historians, and there is no evidence of this whatsoever. A classic example of the sort of things that idiots, in fact, believe and defend. They thrive on outdated wisdom. And so the good news is that idiots live in the past. That's why it is better, in my view, as you know, to study the future. Idiots believe things like you need to look inside yourself. May I suggest, ladies and gentlemen, that this is a terrible place to look. They believe, for example, that it starts with you. This is, of course, utter nonsense. It is incredibly unlikely to start with you. It is a simple mathematical case of probability. Think about it like this. There's you. There are 7.5 billion others. In which one of the following multiple choice options is it more likely to start? Option A, you. Option B, any one of the other 7.4 billion people. So stop looking inside yourself and start looking around. It's not going to start with you no matter what your mother told you. Idiots say things like, it is what it is. What else could it possibly be? This makes absolutely no contribution to the development of the human intellect. They search for things like a root cause, as if such a thing exists in the complexity that you will face on a daily basis. The root cause is a particular bad place to start, so, by the way, is the beginning. They believe things that, like, what comes around goes around. This is only true if one is a wheel. They want to do things like going straight to the point. That assumes, firstly, that there is a point, and secondly, that there is, in fact, already a path to such point. The reality is that there's an infinite number of points, and my invitation to you is whatever you do, do not go straight there. Take an intellectual meander. Take an intellectual outing. Go camping with your mind. Turns out the tables do not turn. Idiots want to get to the bottom of things. Why they believe the answer should be at the bottom, no one knows. It's very unlikely to be there, at least as likely as in any other place. Idiots believe that if they say that's your imagination, it's an insult. It's a compliment. Idiots believe if they say you work like a machine, that's a compliment. It's an insult. Because if you want to compete with machines in the future, the best way to do that is to stop behaving like a machine. That's the thing they will most struggle to do. We live, of course, in an era of fake news, of post-truth, clickbait, even anti-intellectualism. The increased use of phrases like so-called experts, yes, you heard correctly, so-called experts, in an attempt to undermine the very existence, the possibility of expertise. In a kind of pseudo-democratic intellectual relativism, opinion has become equated with science. We know, of course, that that's not really the case. This epistemological relativism, coupled with a sort of Oprah-like idea of just believing in yourself, it has meant that many view science as a subject of belief. Many argue, for example, I don't believe in climate change. It's not a religion. You cannot choose to believe in it or not believe in it. It is the subject of science, of rigor, the sort of interrogation that you've been exposed to over the last several months. So, dear learned colleagues, may I encourage you to be bold, be viciously creative. The world does not have an oversupply of creative minds. Risk the absurdity of making a novel contribution. Be ridiculed for your observation. What you want to work towards is to be called onto the red carpet. You want the CEO to call you in and say, I'm sorry, but it's come to our attention that you have attempted to be creatively brilliant, and I'm afraid this is not the sort of thing we can tolerate. Because then you know you should have moved on long ago. So investigate, discover, pay attention, find solace in the certain knowledge that in time, the rewards of the adventurous mind will be far superior to the intellectually weak and false confirmation of outdated truths. So make sure that your eyes are in fact larger than your stomach. Do bite off more than you can chew. Whatever you do, don't get to the bottom of things. Don't even try to get on top of things. Don't get into things. Get ahead of things. Because every opportunity, every conceivable avenue of possibility lies in the future. And for now, there are very few idiots there. You've been very kind. Thank you.